Have you ever wondered what it feels like to commute not by train, not by highway, but by ferry, across open water every single day? For some people, that's not a once-in-a-while adventure. It's life. In one corner of the world, the road to work, school, and the grocery store can include tides, weather delays, engine noise, and a front row seat to the ocean. And for the people who live there, this isn't a novelty. It's ordinary. Today, we're stepping inside the world of the longest ferry commute and the island roads that depend on it. This is a story about geography, transportation, daily routines, and what happens when water becomes part of the commute. It's also a story about resilience, because when your neighborhood is scattered across islands, every trip requires planning. Every schedule matters, and every ferry ride becomes part of the rhythm of life. To understand this world, we need to understand one simple fact. For many island communities, roads do not end where the pavement stops. They continue onto docks, across channels, and into ferry timetables. On a map, these places can look close together. But in real life, distance is measured not just in miles, but in minutes waiting for the next departure, hours lost to weather, and the challenge of keeping a community connected when the sea is in the way. One of the best-known examples of this kind of life is found in the San Juan Islands in Washington state, where ferry travel is not a special event. It is the main transportation system. Residents, workers, students, and visitors all rely on ferries to move between islands and the mainland. And for some commuters, the trip can become a serious part of the day. Depending on the route, the crossing itself may only take a short time, but the full commute can stretch much longer once you include driving to the terminal, loading time, waiting in line, and the possibility of a backup sailing. This is not just a ride. It's a transportation chain, and that chain is exactly what makes island life unique. Let's talk about what the longest ferry commute really means. There are a few ways to measure it. You can measure the time spent on the ferry. You can measure the total time from home to destination. Or you can measure how much of someone's life is shaped by ferry schedules. In island communities, the longest commute is often not about the distance between 2 points. It's about how difficult it is to make that journey every day while still maintaining a normal work schedule. Imagine waking up before sunrise, checking the ferry schedule, and planning your entire morning around a boat that might be full, delayed, or canceled because of wind or fog. That is reality for many island residents. If you miss one departure, your day can be thrown off by an hour or more. If there's a holiday weekend, the wait may be even longer. If a storm rolls in, the commute may become unpredictable. In other words, a ferry commute is not just transportation. It is a schedule built around uncertainty. That uncertainty shapes how island roads work. On a mainland commute, roads are usually designed with one assumption. If you have a car and enough time, you can get where you're going. On an island, that's not always true. A road may end at a ferry terminal. A short drive can become a long day because the road includes the ferry queue. A school bus may need to coordinate with sailings. A doctor's appointment may require leaving home much earlier than the actual distance would suggest. Even a simple grocery trip can become a project. In many island communities, this affects nearly everything. Residents learn to plan around tides, vessel capacity, and the difference between peak and off-peak travel. They know which sailings are most crowded. They know what happens when tourism season arrives and the line of cars stretches back down the road. They know that an ordinary Thursday can feel very different from a summer Saturday. This is where island roads become fascinating. They're not just strips of asphalt. They're part of a larger system that includes docks, terminals, reservation systems, and boats that function almost like floating bridges. In places where bridges are not practical or not built, ferries become the lifeline. For commuters, that lifeline comes with trade-offs. On one hand, there is the beauty of the experience. A ferry commute can offer spectacular views. Instead of sitting in traffic beside concrete barriers, passengers might watch mountains, open water, seals, seabirds, and sometimes whales. In the morning, the water can be glassy and calm. In the evening, the sun might drop behind the islands in a way that makes the whole ride feel surreal. For many people, it is one of the most beautiful commutes in the world. But beauty does not cancel out inconvenience. The ferry commute is slower than a direct road connection. It adds steps. It depends on weather. It depends on staffing. It depends on vessel maintenance. And because ferries have limited capacity, A busy crossing can mean waiting for the next boat even if you arrive on time. This is one of the central facts of island life. Transportation is shared space, and shared space means limits. Those limits are especially important for working people. A commuter who needs to be in the office by 8 a.m. cannot treat the ferry like a casual option. They have to think about the whole chain. What time do I need to leave home? How much time do I need to reach the terminal? How early should I arrive to make sure I'm in line? Is this sailings likely to be full? If I miss it, what happens? What if there's a mechanical issue? What if the weather changes? What if traffic on the island road is heavier than usual? Those questions are normal in ferry communities. They are the background noise of daily life. And because of that, island roads often foster a different relationship with time. People are more likely to leave early. They're more likely to carry snacks, backup plans, and patience. They're more likely to check multiple sources of information before heading out. They're also more likely to build routines around the ferry schedule rather than expecting the schedule to adapt to them. This can be frustrating, but it also creates a strong sense of shared experience. When a ferry is delayed, everyone is delayed together. When a sailing is canceled, the whole community feels it. When a vessel finally arrives and the cars begin to load, there's a kind of quiet cooperation that you don't always see on highway ramps. Drivers know they need to keep moving. Passengers know they need to fit into the timetable. It is a system built on mutual dependence. Now, to understand why ferry commutes can become so long, we need to look at the geography of island roads. Islands often have limited space for wide highways or major road networks. The number of homes, businesses, and public services is concentrated into a smaller area. That means roads can be narrow, winding, and relatively short in total length. But the short road network does not mean short travel times. A road that leads to a ferry terminal may serve as the island's main artery, carrying everyone to the same bottleneck. That bottleneck is the terminal. At a ferry terminal, the road becomes a queue. Cars line up. Bicycles may wait separately. Walk-on passengers arrive with backpacks or shopping bags. Delivery trucks make their way on and off. School buses may need priority. Emergency vehicles must be accommodated. Every vehicle represents a different need, and the terminal has to manage them all within a schedule. That's why island roads can feel so different from mainland roads. They aren't built just for motion. They're built for staging. And staging has consequences. A family might time a doctor visit around the ferry. A contractor might schedule a job based on the first available morning sailing. A student might use the ferry commute to read or do homework because that's the only quiet time they'll get. A retiree might adjust shopping trips to avoid busy sailings. Life becomes organized around the movement of boats. This is where the ferry commute becomes more than a transport story. It becomes a social story. Because when a community depends on ferries, transportation affects access. Access to jobs, access to education, access to healthcare, access to supplies, even access to family and friends. In other words, the ferry is not just moving people. It is connecting opportunity. That's why delays hit harder on islands than they do in places with more alternative routes. On the mainland, a traffic jam might be annoying. On an island, a missed ferry can alter the whole day. There may be no alternate bridge, no side road that gets you around the bottleneck. If the ferry doesn't go, neither do you. And yet island communities adapt remarkably well. They develop what you might call ferry intelligence. People know how to read the weather forecast not just for comfort, but for transportation. They understand wind direction, tidal conditions, and peak travel times. They know that a strong weekend tourism flow can make a Monday morning less predictable. They know that school breaks and holidays affect ferry demand. They understand that living on an island means seeing the world through a timetable. This adaptability is not just practical, it becomes cultural. Island life often fosters patience and independence. People are used to being slightly removed from the mainland's pace. They are used to dealing with supply shipments, seasonal crowds, and the feeling that the ocean is both a boundary and a highway. The ferry commute reinforces this identity every day. It reminds residents that they are part of a community with its own rhythm. In some places, that rhythm is almost legendary. People outside these communities may imagine ferry travel as relaxing, even romantic. And sometimes it is. But ask a regular commuter and you'll hear something different. They'll talk about queues, missed sailings, vehicle reservations, late arrivals, and the mental math of leaving early enough to protect against uncertainty. They'll tell you that the ferry is beautiful, yes, but it's still workday transportation. It still has to function like a road. That's why the infrastructure matters so much. Ferry systems have to deal with terminal design, vessel size, staffing, maintenance, and capacity planning. They need to handle seasonal surges. They need to keep schedules reliable enough that people can plan their lives around them. For island communities, transportation policy is not abstract. It is daily reality. A good ferry system makes an island feel connected. A weak one makes it feel isolated. And isolation has a cost. Businesses may struggle to attract workers if the commute is too long or too unreliable. Students may face difficulties getting to school or extracurricular activities. Medical services may be harder to reach. Families may think twice about where to live, work, or retire. Even a relatively short water crossing can shape the local economy because it changes how people move and how quickly goods can arrive. That's why a ferry commute can be both a blessing and a burden. It allows life on islands that would otherwise be far harder to sustain. It supports tourism, trade, and daily necessities. But it also imposes a time tax. Every trip includes waiting. Every schedule includes risk. Every island road ends, sooner or later, at the water. Now let's zoom in on the human side. Think about the person who commutes every day from one island to another, or from an island to the mainland. They may be a teacher, nurse, trades worker, office employee, or service worker. Their day begins before the ferry terminal is busy and often ends after the last practical sailing. They might know the ferry crew by face. They might have a favorite seat or a preferred spot on the deck. They might keep a rain jacket in the car because they know the deck can get windy even when the sky looks clear. This is not the kind of commute that disappears into the background. It shapes a person's identity. It turns time management into a life skill. It teaches flexibility. It teaches acceptance. And it makes people very aware of how much of modern life depends on transportation infrastructure that most of us take for granted. That awareness becomes especially sharp when something goes wrong. If a ferry breaks down, the island feels it. If a terminal closes for maintenance, the island feels it. If a storm reduces service, the island feels it. Suddenly, the roads that seemed normal become a maze of rescheduling and compromise. Commuters may need to carpool, adjust work hours, or stay overnight on the mainland. Delivery trucks might miss supply windows. Workers may arrive late. Schools and businesses may adapt. This is why islanders often become experts in contingency planning. They understand that resilience means having backup options, even if those options are limited. They keep extra supplies. They check updates constantly. They know that a ferry schedule is more than a timetable. It is a promise, and when the promise changes, the whole community reacts. At the same time, ferry commuting can create small joys that mainland commuters rarely experience. There's the shared sunrise over the water, the sight of the shoreline slowly appearing in the distance, the feeling of crossing from one place to another in a visible, tangible way. On a ferry, you understand your movement. You can see the water beneath you and the destination ahead. That can make the commute feel human in a way that anonymous highways do not. And on island roads, the human scale matters. These communities are often smaller, closer-knit, and more aware of one another. People notice when a familiar car is missing from the morning line. They notice tourists who are unsure where to queue. They notice the winter regulars and the summer visitors. The ferry terminal becomes a social crossroads, a place where daily life briefly gathers before splitting off again. This is one reason ferry systems are so important in island geography. They don't just move vehicles. They organize relationships. The road network on an island is, in a sense, incomplete without the ferry. The ferry becomes the final segment of the road, the missing link between neighborhoods and the wider world. That makes the commute feel longer, but it also makes it more meaningful. Every crossing is a reminder that geography still matters. In a world full of instant communication, physical movement still has limits. And those limits define island life. If you live in a place with bridges and freeways, it's easy to assume that every place can be connected in the same way. But islands challenge that assumption. They show us that transportation solutions must fit the landscape. Sometimes the best road is not a road at all. Sometimes it's a vessel, a dock, and a schedule that everyone learns to live by. The world's longest ferry commute is not just about miles or minutes. It's about the way people build a life around water. It's about seeing the ocean not as an obstacle, but as part of the commute. It's about planning ahead, adapting often, and accepting that the route to work may depend on wind, tide, and timing. And in that way, island roads tell a bigger story about human adaptability. We are constantly negotiating with geography. Mountains, rivers, deserts, and oceans all shape how we move. Island communities simply make that negotiation visible every day. Their commute is not hidden inside a car or swallowed by a tunnel. It's out in the open, on the water, where everyone can see the boundaries and the bridge between them. So the next time you complain about traffic, think about the people whose commute includes a ferry line, a loading ramp, and a crossing over the sea. Think about the workers who check the schedule before they check the weather. Think about the families who live by the rhythm of departures and arrivals. Think about the island roads that end at the shoreline and continue across the water. Because for them, commuting is not just about getting there. It's about making life possible in a place where the road and the sea meet. And that is what makes the world's longest ferry commute so fascinating. It is not just transportation, but a way of living. If you enjoyed this journey into island life and ferry commuting, make sure to like the video, subscribe for more stories about unusual places and real-world facts, and leave a comment about the most unique commute you've ever heard of.